What do you say when a cop looks at you and asks, "If you didn't do anything wrong, why not just answer a few questions?" If you say, "I didn't do anything wrong, you just stepped into the trap." That line sounds innocent, but it can turn your simple stop into their investigation. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could protect you when your nerves are shot and your mind goes blank. Tap like too because you will want this in your history the day you actually need it. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn why that one sentence hurts you, what to say instead, how to shut down consent searches, and how to stop your stop from stretching into something way worse. You're also going to hear the exact words you can memorize tonight. No fancy law school talk, no confusing terms, just plain English you can use under pressure. Most people have no idea that the biggest mistake happens before the ticket even gets written. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos and the pattern is always the same. The driver tries to sound innocent, keeps talking, and hands the officer more and more material to work with. Here's the reality. Your roadside stop is not the place to prove your innocence with words. Your roadside stop is the place to protect your rights with discipline. When you say, "I didn't do anything wrong," you invite the next question, then the next one, then another. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? Why are you nervous? Who owns the car? Do you have anything illegal inside? You think you're calming things down, but you're actually helping them build a story around you. Let me show you exactly how this unfolds, because once you see the pattern, you'll never handle a stop the same way again. Here's what goes wrong for you. You get pulled over, your heart starts pounding. The officer walks up calm, casual, maybe even friendly. Then comes the bait. "If you didn't do anything wrong, you don't mind talking." That sounds harmless. It sounds reasonable. It even sounds polite. But your job is not to win a roadside conversation. Your job is to survive a roadside investigation without giving away your own protection. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because they know most cases get stronger for the state when the driver keeps talking. Your words become evidence. Your tone becomes suspicion. Your nervous laugh becomes a reason to dig deeper. The first thing you do is stop trying to sound innocent and start sounding clear. If you're driving, hand over your license, registration, and insurance when asked. If your state requires your name, give your name. Then shut the door on extra questions. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I'll provide my documents, but I choose to remain silent." Word for word. Memorize that line. That sentence works because you're separating what you must do from what you do not have to do. You're not resisting, you're not arguing, you're not being rude. You're simply refusing to become the source of evidence against yourself. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Berghuis versus McCarty, the court said regular traffic stops usually happen before Miranda warnings kick in. In plain English, that means you can talk yourself into trouble before anyone ever reads you your rights. That's why your silence matters so much on the side of the road. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I didn't do anything wrong." Then they start explaining where they were, what they drank, who they saw, and why they look nervous. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I'll provide my documents, but I choose to remain silent." Then the officer gets fewer words to twist and fewer openings to chase. Watch what happens when you use the wrong line. The officer asks where you're coming from, you say dinner. Then he asks whether you had a drink, you say just one. Then he asks what time, then what kind, then whether you're tired, then whether you use anything else. Your one sentence of innocence turned into a ladder, and you helped him climb every step. You thought you were sounding honest. What you actually did was create a trail of statements that can be compared, challenged, and used against you later. Now watch what happens when you use the right line. You hand over your documents. You stay calm. You say, "Officer, I'll provide my documents, but I choose to remain silent." That forces the stop back toward its original job. Ticket, warning, license check, insurance check, done. It does not guarantee the officer smiles and walks away. Nothing guarantees that. But it keeps you from making the case worse with your own mouth. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when emotions are high and you feel the urge to explain. And yes, this is 100% legal. You're not required to help build a criminal case against yourself. You are required to comply with lawful orders like giving your documents if you're driving. But you do not have to turn your stop into a free interview. Listen closely because this is critical. Silence only protects you if you actually use it. Nodding awkwardly and half answering questions is not silence. Rambling and then saying you want to stop talking is not discipline. You have to draw the line early and keep it there. Have you ever felt that pressure to explain yourself fast just to seem innocent? Drop a comment below with yes or no, because I want to know if you've seen this happen in your own life. Now let's talk about the question that gets more drivers in trouble than almost anything else. "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right?" That one sounds casual on purpose. It's designed to make you feel like only guilty people say no. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. Your yes can do more damage than their suspicion. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Say it calmly. Say it clearly. Say nothing extra. That sentence matters because consent changes everything. In Schneckloth versus Bustamante, the Supreme Court said a search can be valid if your consent was voluntary. In plain English, if you say yes, the fight gets much harder later. The court does not require police to prove you fully understood every legal right before you agreed. That means your simple, nervous yes can wipe out one of your best protections. Former police officers have confirmed this works because they know a consent search is the easiest search. No warrant, no long debate. Just your permission doing the heavy lifting for them. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, I don't have anything to hide. Then the officer searches the car, opens containers, and finds something the driver forgot was even there. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to rely on actual legal grounds instead of your permission. You need to hear that again. Refusing consent does not magically stop every search. If police already have lawful grounds, they may search anyway. If they claim they smell drugs or they have probable cause or some other exception applies, they may move forward. But your refusal still matters. It protects your record. It shows you did not waive your rights. It gives your lawyer something real to work with later. That is huge. You are not trying to win an argument in that moment. You are trying to avoid helping the other side. And yes, this is 100% legal. You can refuse consent. You can do it politely. You can do it without attitude. You can do it without raising your voice. Your tone matters because your goal is not to look combative. Your goal is to sound firm, plain, and boring. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. That's it. No speech, no lecture, no insults, no fake law degree from the internet. Just the line. Here's the reality. A lot of drivers think refusal makes them look guilty. That fear is exactly why officers ask the question the way they do. But guilt is not the standard. Your rights are the standard. You are allowed to protect your space even when you've done nothing wrong. In fact, that is when your rights matter most. The innocent driver who talks too much and consents too fast can still end up in a nightmare over something small, old, borrowed, forgotten, or misunderstood. The next move is one that can save you from standing on the roadside way longer than the law allows. After the normal tasks are done, you ask a simple question. You look at the officer and say this: am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. Say them calmly, then stop talking. This line works because it forces the moment into focus. Either the stop is still lawfully active or it should be ending. In Rodriguez versus United States, the Supreme Court said police cannot extend a traffic stop longer than needed to handle the traffic issue unless they have separate legal grounds. In plain English, the mission of the stop is things like checking your license, registration, insurance, and warrants, then giving you the ticket or warning. It is not an endless fishing trip just because you look nervous or they feel curious. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Are we good?" Then they keep chatting, keep waiting, and keep answering questions while the stop drifts on. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Then the officer has to either justify the delay or end the stop. Watch what happens when you never ask. The ticket is done. The officer hands it back. Then he says, "Hey, one more thing." That is where many stops turn ugly. You think you still have to stay. You think the whole thing is one long command. So you keep standing there, then come more questions, then a request to search, then maybe a dog, then maybe backup. Time is now working against you because you never made the officer define the situation. Now watch what happens when you ask the right question. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? If the officer says you are free to leave, you leave. If the officer says you are detained, now the line is clear. He is owning that decision out loud. That matters. It matters on video. It matters in reports. It matters in court. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it exposes whether the stop stayed inside the law or drifted outside it. 90% of viewers won't stay to hear this next part, but if you're still here, you're learning the part that separates calm drivers from easy targets. If you're still watching, drop a comment saying I'm still here because the next move is the one almost nobody gets right. Now let's cover the moment people mess up because they think compliance and surrender mean the same thing. They do not. If an officer lawfully orders you out of the car, step out. If the officer tells you where to stand, stand there. If you have to identify yourself as the driver, do it. But do not turn compliance into conversation. Let me show you exactly what that sounds like. I will comply with lawful orders. I do not consent to any searches, and I choose to remain silent. That line matters because the law gives officers certain control during a stop. In Pennsylvania versus Mims, the Supreme Court said an officer can order a driver out of a car during a lawful traffic stop. In Hybel versus 6th Judicial District Court, the court said some states can require a person to identify himself during a valid stop. In plain English, you may have to move. You may have to identify yourself. But that does not mean you have to explain your whole life story while doing it. Compliance is about actions. Waiver is about extra words. Keep those separate in your mind. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Why are you making me get out? I told you I didn't do anything wrong." Then the stop gets more tense, the officer gets more alert, and your words become the new focus. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I will comply with lawful orders. I do not consent to any searches, and I choose to remain silent." Then you protect yourself without turning the moment into a contest. This is where people lose control of their own stop. They think every order must be answered with a speech. It doesn't. Step out if lawfully ordered. Keep your hands visible. Do not make sudden moves. Do not argue on the roadside, but do not volunteer facts either. That balance is powerful. You are calm, you are compliant, you are quiet, you are not feeding the machine with extra material. And if you're wondering whether this actually works in the real world, yes, it does. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the drivers who do best are usually not the loudest or the toughest. They are the clearest. They follow orders, they refuse consent, they stop talking, they ask whether they are free to leave. That combination keeps the stop narrow. It does not guarantee a perfect outcome, but it stops you from making the outcome worse with your own panic. Now let's tie the law together in plain English so you can remember it under stress. Berghuis versus McCarty tells you that roadside questioning often happens before Miranda, so you should not wait for some TV moment before protecting yourself. Schneckloth versus Bustamante tells you that voluntary consent can make a search hard to fight later, so your no matters. Rodriguez versus United States tells you the stop cannot drag on past its traffic mission without separate legal grounds. Pennsylvania versus Mims tells you officers can order you out during a lawful stop, so comply physically. Hebel tells you that in some places you may have to identify yourself, but that does not mean you must answer every question. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and when you put these cases together, the pattern is simple. Give what the law requires. Refuse what the law does not require. Stop talking before your own words become the evidence. So let's walk through a real roadside scene the wrong way and the right way, because this is where it clicks for you. You're driving home at night. The lights flash behind you. You pull over. The officer says you rolled through a stop sign. He asks for your documents. You hand them over. Then he asks where you're coming from. Wrong way. You say, "I didn't do anything wrong. I was just at my friend's place. I only had one drink hours ago. I'm just tired." In 10 seconds, you gave him location, timeline, possible alcohol use, and a reason for your appearance. Then he asks whether there's anything illegal in the car. You laugh and say, "No, go ahead and look." Now your stop just exploded. Right way, you hand over your documents and say, "Officer, I'll provide my documents, but I choose to remain silent." He asks where you're coming from. You repeat the line. He asks whether there's anything illegal in the car. You say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." He tells you to step out. You step out and say, "I will comply with lawful orders. I do not consent to any searches, and I choose to remain silent." He finishes the warning and keeps talking. You ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" That is clean. That is controlled. That protects you at every stage. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because every part of it narrows the stop and cuts off the easy paths into a bigger case. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that single claim changes everything and most drivers handle it the worst possible way. So here's your recap. First, never try to prove your innocence with the line, "I didn't do anything wrong," because your words can become the case against you. Second, give the documents and identification the law requires. Then say, "I choose to remain silent." Third, if they ask to search, say, "I do not consent to any searches." Fourth, when the traffic mission should be over, ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If you remember those steps, you stop acting scared and start acting prepared. Hit subscribe so you catch that weed smell video next week. Smash that like button if this helped you see the trap before it happens to you. And drop a comment telling me which exact line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe, stay calm, and protect your rights.